They call him Seatin, the man of legends.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Seatin and welcome to the 3.0 Cleric Tanking Guide. In this video we're going to be going all over the Justicar soul, how the build works, how the abilities work, how to get fret, how the masteries work, and all that fun stuff. So we're going to start off with the very basics, which are the specs. Now as a Cleric tank, I'd highly recommend having two different specs in your arsenal. This is the one that I'd suggest every Cleric has just as kind of the standard default max health and max mitigation build. So it's 61 Justicar, 6 Inquisitor, and 9 Shaman. So that is pretty much the go-to tank build. The masteries are the same for sort of any tank build that you use. I like Avenging Shield. This means whenever I critical hit with a damage or ability, it gives me a small absorption shield based on a percentage of my maximum health. And when I have like literally a lot of health, even more in a raid environment, we're talking this is a decent shield, a very, very good one to have. Level 62, you have Divine Inspiration. Now this basically causes your Doctrine of Authority, which is a very, very hard-hitting single target ability, to apply a debuff called Censure, which deals additional damage, and it's very, very good, and also that doesn't consume a conviction anymore. It also kind of increases your outgoing healing and absorption granted, which can be good as a Justicar as you are firing off a lot of passive healing via salvation and also sort of via big cooldowns such as Doctrine of Loyalty and all that fun stuff that we'll talk about later. For the level 63 mastery, it is super debatable. There is nothing like big here that will make or break Justicar tanking. You can either go for like 10% passive unmounted movement speed, an increased radiance on your guard, radius on your guard even, or like a stacking slightly higher movement speed buff, which basically stacks up to a total of 12% in comparison to 10%. If there is a fight where you need to kite, that one might be a bit better, but for the majority of scenarios, Swift Judgment is probably the go-to talent. For level 64, it really doesn't matter that much. I believe Diversify in pretty much all scenarios is the best option to go for. Just gives you kind of like a stacking 2.5% damage increase, nothing kind of tanky there. And level 65, I would say initially you're going to look at it and go Vicar's Bulwark is the best one to do, but it's really not. Like Vicar's Bulwark, in my opinion, is a pretty weak ability, and I much prefer to have Soulstream, because what you can do is this acts as a really big tank cooldown. It restores health equal to 50% of your health every second for 3 seconds. So basically on myself that is a channeled heal for like 170k over 3 seconds. So that is amazing for situations where, you know, I pull too much and maybe I've got, you know, I'm pretty confident that I've got aggro and I just want to heal myself up and ensure that I don't die. So that is a pretty much must in my opinion, and is much better than Vicar's Bulwark. There may be rare scenarios where that's better, but for the majority of the time, Soulstream is a clear winner for me. Anyway, so let me just talk about the optional spec that you can have. Now this is a spec it's very slightly different. The only main difference is that you have 12 Inquisitor and 3 Shaman, so this actually allows you to get a Purge, which can be very useful in expert dungeons, and for a variety of raid encounters that you actually do have a Purge available. So yeah, I definitely consider picking that up for any sort of serious Justicar tanks, people who really want to get into the meat of Justicar tanking, and thus become the world's best tank. So now on to kind of the rotation and core mechanics of being a Justicar tank. Now, as you can see, right under my name, I have something called Convictions. You can have a maximum of 7 of these, and they are basically obtained every time you deal life damage to an enemy. Pretty much all of your attacks are life. Every 3 seconds, you're going to get 1 conviction, and basically using the cooldown Total Assurance is going to grant you 7 convictions. Now, there are kind of 4 different core ways you can, well, sorry, 5 different core ways you can spend your convictions. Now you have Hammer of Duty, which is a dumps all your convictions into a very hard single target hitting attack, so that's good for like generating single target threat. You have Hammer of Faith, which dumps all your convictions into basically like an AoE hammer, which is good for generating AoE threat. You have Doctrine of Loyalty, which is a kind of like fairly large AoE heal. Both Doctrine of Loyalty and Doctrine Doctrine of Bliss are actually only going to consume 4 convictions. So this means basically they're not going to consume all your convictions, and you can quite possibly fire out like 2 of them in quick succession. So that's kind of, you know, interesting to bear in mind, and something that good tanks will want to be aware of. Because, you know, you could possibly, like, I don't know, fire out Doctrine of Loyalty and then use an ability and fire off another one. So that is pretty damn cool, and that can help to add as a buffer to, like, for example, raid healing in periods where there are very, very heavy damage. Doctrine of Bliss will, you know, it's just a big single target heal on yourself, and if it heals you over maximum health, it's going to give you an absorb shield, which can absorb quite a bit of damage. It absorbs about 7k on me, which is, you know, always useful for mitigating those big hits that you may get on a boss. So yeah, that's very, very interesting to bear in mind, that, you know, if it does overheal you, it is going to give you a bit of a shield. So that is very, very cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the doctrines. Once you understand that, apart from that, literally AoE and single target, very, very easy to manage. Now for single target, I have literally slapped absolutely everything into a single target spam macro, apart from Doctrine of Authority. So the kind of standard single target rotation, I will have this macro in the description, will be literally put up Doctrine of Authority and then spam your single target macro whenever you have 7 stacks of conviction, then for a Hammer of Duty, unless for whatever reason you need to heal the raid. But literally for beginners and 101ers, it's going to be spam the macro, use Doctrine of Authority off cooldown. You can actually put Doctrine of Authority in the macro if you so do desire. However, it does have a healing component with it that I like to kind of sometimes save and use for certain mechanics, just to make raid healing that little bit easier. I mean, it's not a huge heal, but it does help the buffer. So sometimes I like, you know, to add that into the rotation as well. So very, very easy single target rotation. Literally as a cleric tank, you're never going to have a problem there. Now when it comes to AoE, it's kind of it's a different-ish story. Now what you want to do is you want to essentially apply a censure, and then you want to usually engage with a Hammer of Faith. This will basically spread your censure to all of the targets. So let's say the mobs are over there, you know, I'm going to use censure, then spread the dot, and also that, you know, gives me a hard-hitting AoE aggro. And then literally what you want to do is you want to hit as many of them as you possibly can with your Even Justice ability, which will basically cleave up to 10 targets, sort of in a fairly decent, I believe it actually cleaves behind you as well. Yeah, it does. So it's a 360-degree cone AoE ability attack. Even though like the visual animation only makes it look like it's in front of you, it's actually all around you, so you can be facing away from targets and cleaving them. So yeah, that's quite interesting. As long as the targets are within 7 meters of you, they will get hit by the Even Justice ability. So that's pretty damn cool. So as you can see, very simple single target rotation, very simple AoE one, and literally it is a very, very easy tank spec to play. I'm not going to beat around the bush. You kind of just need to react to kind of the scenario at hand and, you know, figure out what is going on and how you can counter it. Now, a couple of other things I finally want to talk about, you know, about cleric tank and other cooldowns and utility that you have. Now, for control, you actually have interdict, which is an AoE interrupt, so it will not only interrupt the target, but also all nearby enemies, so that is very useful to bear in mind. You have sovereignty, which is a 2-second stun, very good for, you know, maybe like blocking off a bit of damage or acting as an additional interrupt on mobs that can be CC'd. Cooldown wise, you have Resplendent Embrace, increases your maximum health by 20% and increases healing received by 50% for 10 seconds. That is on a 2-minute cooldown. That is probably one of your kind of like, I don't know, I'd say second biggest, third biggest cooldown actually. I consider the 1-minute ones a lot more valuable. So the 1-minute cooldowns are just defense. That basically puts a shield on you, absorbing 50% of your maximum health. So boom, for me it's a 62k shield, and that is bloody OP. And then you have reprieve, which will basically restore 100% of your maximum health, and if you have a target of righteous mandate, which righteous mandate is basically a buff you'll always want to apply to the healer. If you have that on a target, it will heal them for 50% of your maximum health, which will top up any sort of healer or DPS that it is targeted on. So yeah, that's pretty damn cool and pretty damn OP in my opinion. Apart from that, you have Doctrine of Glory. I really don't like Doctrine of Glory. It basically consumes all your convictions and reduces damage taken by about 3% per conviction for 4 seconds. So literally you should only ever use this if you know a really big hit is incoming in like a second and you need to mitigate that one hit, because in overall effective it's not going to be too useful, to be honest. It's alright. It's not the best cooldown in the world, and the fact that it consumes convictions just makes it a bit crappy, to be honest. Apart from that, you will have a variety of taunts. Single target taunt, you have Rebuke, which basically pulls enemies towards you, and Righteous Imperative, which is your standard AoE taunt. And the final thing I want to talk about is like buffs and aggro regeneration. Buffs: Mane of Leadership, Courage of the Bear, Armor of Treachery, and Vengeance of the Winter Storm. And then of course you're going to want to have the old Righteous Mandate just on you know, your friendly healer or DPS that you do not want to die. And that is pretty much it, guys. That is it for cleric tanking. Very straightforward. However, I do understand a lot of people find it hard to gauge how to play a cleric tank from videos like this. So what we're going to do is expect a separate video, which I'll post in the description of this video, in the next few days of me running an expert dungeon while doing a live commentary of how I'm sort of playing and pulling mobs, etc. So both of the guides will go pretty nicely hand in hand. So thank you for watching the video guide, guys. I hope you learned a thing or two about cleric tanks. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll get around to try and answer them. Apart from that, take care and have an absolutely wonderful day.